there, and today we're going to talk about Danish baby boy names, so stay tuned. Hi and welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Kelly and I'm an American who lives in Denmark. And this year, 2020, I know so many people who are having babies. It is crazy. So I thought I would give you a list of popular Danish boy names throughout the years. Some of them are for people who are older, some of them are brand new babies. And at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you my list of the top baby names for 2020. So you have to stay tuned for that. I have also made a video for Danish baby girl names, so if you haven't checked that out, you should go ahead and click on this link. Before we get started, if you are new to my channel, go ahead and hit the red subscribe button. You know, I've got this thing called analytics, and in my analytics it says that 70% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribers. I think that is crazy. If you like my content, go ahead and hit the red subscribe button, ring the bell so you get notifications when I post new videos, and let's keep going. Here we go. The first one is Asger, and Asger means divine spear. I don't know why, but that's very interesting. I wouldn't say that I know that many people with the name, but I do know some younger people with it, so that might be a little surprising. Number 2 is Bjarne, and Bjarne means bear, and I think that's a really interesting name. I don't think that in English anyone is known to be called bear, but in the US there are a lot of different names. People name their kids all kinds of things, so you never know. Number 3 is Bjørn, and I have such a hard time pronouncing this O with the slash through it. People say, well, that's not what it's called. Well, it's called how it sounds, and it's difficult. In my opinion, it's almost like an I and an R combined, like in girl. It's kind of like that. So Bjørn is the name. I know that this name I've heard before in Germany, and I don't know if it's because they've used the Scandinavian influence or if that's actually a German name. If you know, let me know about it in the comments. This one though means famous bearer. Number 4, I know quite a few of these, and I know people of a lot of different ages. There are people who are my age, all the way down to children, and that is Casper. And Casper means treasure, which I think is really kind of an interesting way of defining it. It's so interesting also if you compare my two videos with boy names and girl names, the types of descriptions that you have for these names are very different. Number 5 is one that I hear quite often, and I hear it quite often because it tends to be the character names in a lot of the books that my kids read. I don't know why that is. And I've known people who have been my age, and again, all the way down to young children with this name. And that name is Emil. And Emil means rival, which is interesting. I don't know if that's kind of maybe a good competition type of name. Number 6 is Felix. And Felix means lucky, which I think is another interesting name. Felix, I think we have referred to a cartoon character as Felix the cat. And with Felix, I think I've actually heard a lot of people name their cats this. But I don't know if I actually know any Felixes. If your name is Felix, shout out. Let me know. How old are you? Where do you live? The next one is Frederik. And Frederik is a popular name because it is actually the name of the crown prince of Denmark. Yes, Denmark has a monarchy run by a queen, and the next in line is Prince Frederik. And so that one is actually quite a popular name here. And it means peace ruler. What a perfect name for a man who's going to be king one day. The next name is Henning. I do know a Henning. Shout out to Henning if you're watching. And this name means peacemaker, which I think is interesting. And I wouldn't say that Henning is a super popular name. I think there are a lot of people my age and even a little bit older whose names are Henning. I don't know if there are a lot of young people with that name though. So if you are 20 and younger and you are a Henning, or you know of somebody in that age group, let me know about it in the comments. Next is Hugo. And we in English would say Hugo, and I think we've seen this before. I'm not quite sure in which context. So if you're an American and you've got an idea right in the top of your head, let me know, because I feel like I know this name from somewhere. But in Denmark, Hugo is actually the name of a really famous cartoon character. And my husband keeps saying that I should have seen this cartoon somewhere in the US, but I just don't think I have. Maybe it's popular in other parts of Denmark. But if you ever go to Jesper, which is kind of like a fun park here in Denmark, they have the character Hugo, and he's a bear. So you'll have to check that out. If you go to my blog, I'm going to put a link here. If you go to my blog, you can see pictures of Hugo. You can see what Jesper's Hus campground and all that looks like, because we've been there quite a few times. It's great. It's a great place. And Hugo means bright in mind and spirit. That's a fantastic meaning of a name. The next one, again, is one that I've seen quite often in the books that my children are reading. Remember, you know, my children are in the younger years, so the books that they have read have been a lot of these really short, I can read type books. And one of them is Ebe. Ebe is a name I have never seen before, ever. It's very interesting. And the name means following after. Following after what? I don't know. Maybe it means kind of follower in a way. But Ebe is a boy's name that you'll find here in Denmark. I wouldn't say that it's very popular, but I have seen it used quite a bit in different characters and books. The next one is Jan, which in English we would pronounce as Jan as a girl's name, but Jan in Danish is a boy's name, and it means Jehovah's gift or grace. And some people could say, you know, Jehovah means God, or it can be translated to God, God's grace, or God's gift. So that is a very interesting thing to think of, that, you know, your name means God's gift, for example. If your name is Jan, give me a shout out in the comments. And I do know quite a few Jans. They would have to be, my age is in the 40s, so maybe even a little bit older or a little bit younger, but I don't know if it's really a popular name for the 2000s. Another name that actually means following after, just like Ebe, is Jeppe. I know a couple Jeppes. They're actually different ages. People in their teens, in their 20s, 30s and 40s actually. So it's kind of, you know, those middle range ages where we see a lot of Jeppes. But it is a very popular name here in Denmark. And a lot of times you'll hear that J kind of is pronounced like a Y sound. So some of these names you might look at if you're an English speaker and pronounce it differently when you're reading it, but it actually has a Danish pronunciation. The next one is Jesper, and we would say Jesper, or even if we change the spelling, we would say Jasper. And Jesper means treasure master. So we have a lot of really good meanings behind some of these names. Another one is Yokum, and there's actually kind of like this famous TV personality, and his name is Yokum, and so I know that from him, but I wouldn't say that I have ever heard the name Yokum in Denmark other than that. So I'm not really thinking it's that popular. We would have Yokum. I've heard before in the US, or maybe even like a version of Joaquin, for example. So I think there's a lot of different things you could go with this. And Yokum means lifted by Jehovah. So another maybe biblical type of name. And then you have one, I remember meeting a guy with this name when my husband and I were dating, and it was so difficult for me to pronounce because it was something like I'd never heard before. And this one is Urine. And Urine actually means husband, which is interesting. You know, it makes you wonder why they have these specific meanings behind all of these names. I'm just very curious about it. But Urine, again, has that funky O, and I'm going to call it the funky O because I'm seriously feel like I butcher it every time I say it. I know some people say that I do all right, but it's very intimidating when you see a word with that letter in it. Moving on to another letter, these are some, and I don't know if it's because my name begins with a K, so I'm biased a little bit, but I think these are really kind of neat. The first one with K is the name Kai, And it's funny because, you know, we were talking about the people that we know who are going to be having babies this year. And my boys and I, we were sitting down and we were talking to each other about, oh, what name should this person name their baby? And so we're coming up with ideas. And this is actually one of the names that we came up with. There is a famous puppet in Denmark called Kai. It's like this frog. Everybody knows who Kai is. So I think maybe there's association with that, but I have met a lot of older, retired people with this name, and I like it. I think it's kind of a nice, sweet sounding name. That's just my opinion. Then Kai means earth, which I think is just great. This one sounds a little bit like mine, and this one is Kill. And I really hope I didn't butcher that, because normally when you have a D at the end of a word, it's silent. So it's almost as if it's not there, but you have this kind of thing going on. And Kel means offspring, which is interesting in its own right. But I have met some with this name, and I would say that they're kind of more my age or even a little bit older. Some of these are very typical Danish names that you hear a lot of dads and grandpas, let's just put it that way, who have them, but maybe not so many little kids with these names. I think a lot of little kids, and we'll talk about that later, tend to be names that you might hear in other places, but more on that to come. One, oh my gosh, is very, very tricky. And you're looking at it and you're thinking, what? That's a name? And this one is Canoe. And Canoe, yes, they pronounce the K and the N, not something we do in English. And then there's this weird thing with the D at the end. It's not the D that we know in English. But this one, this is, you know, and when I say what they mean, it's just whatever meaning is associated with the name. It's not that these names translate to something. So I'm not going to go up to somebody and use this name in a sentence. That's just not how it works. But Canoe means kindness, which is great. I would think as a foreigner, it's kind of difficult for me to make the name come out right. But for it to have such a great meaning, it feels worth it. Now let's get into some names that start with L. One in particular is Lassa. And Lassa, I have never heard before. In English, we had a dog in the US called Lassie, and that is the only name that I could associate with that. Lassa means city of laurels, which is, there's another natural one. You know, we had one before that means earth, and then this one, laurels, referring to trees, and it's just such a nice meaning behind a name. The next one, again, I had met a young boy with this name, and I swear it took me forever to understand just exactly what it was that I was hearing, because we didn't have anything that would directly translate to this. I actually had to have it spelled out so I could see it in my head what it was that they were saying. And this one is Laurits. We know some young Laurits, and I would say that it's very close to the name Lawrence, which is the long version of Larry in the US or in English. And so this one actually means boy or laurel tree. I don't really know the meaning behind the two that's put with that, but it's very, I would say, a popular name. I've heard it quite a few times with younger people here in Denmark. And then one that I had heard that I know that we've used a few times in the US. It's not extremely popular, but people do use it, and I know people use it incorrectly, I guess, if you look at it with regards to how the Danes pronounce it. And that is the name Leif. Leif actually means heir. That does kind of make sense if you think about the English word life, and heir means, you know, the person kind of taking over, to the person to survive and continue. And so I think that's really quite interesting. But I think in English, the people who have this name that I have heard of it, they would refer to themselves as Leif. And apparently that is the wrong pronunciation. Then we get into a very big category for names for boys, in my opinion. And that is with the letter M. You have names like Mass. Yes, I would have called it Mads if I first saw it, and I actually have a friend whose last name is Madsen, and that's not how you pronounce it, but of course when I first met this person. I was living in the US and I had no idea how to pronounce their name. So it makes much more sense now. And mass means gift of the Lord, which I would have never come up with. I don't know, it's very interesting. Mass. It does, you know, when you think about it in English, it sounds like one thing, and you look at the way that it's spelled and it makes you think of another thing, and it's not gift of the Lord, if you ask me. Another one that I butchered and I had to write down because I had no idea what people were saying. There's this sweet little boy and I said, what is your name? You know, trying to use the best Danish that I could, and really it's beginning level. And he said his name over and over and over again. And I had no idea what he was saying. Another example of me trying to find an English name that must be somewhat close to that. And this name is Magnus. It's because of, you know, the combination of letters put together, you would never know that it made that sound. I'm like, Magnus? Oh, wait a minute. How do you say it? Magnus. Okay. And it would mean great. I have met quite a few other people with the next few names. One is Meltem, and that means assembly. I have no idea why. And again, it's a name that I have only heard here. Another M name that I think is really popular here in Denmark is the name Marius. And Marius means male. And I've known people who are younger. I know quite a few younger people with this name. So I would say that it's actually kind of popular in schools right now. Then there's the name Matthias, which I know I've heard Matthias before. I'm not quite sure if it was in a specific country or a specific background, but I know I've heard this name. And I know people who have this name who are my age and younger, and a lot of school-age kids. And Matthias means gift of the Lord again. So I know a couple Matthiases out there who would probably love to hear that. Remember though that I was a teacher in a school here, so I know quite a few younger people, and I do have children of my own, so I'm thinking of the names of their friends as well. Then there is the name Mikkel, and Mikkel is kind of the Danish spelling of the word Michael, and it's more popular than Michael, even though I have seen Michaels here. They do not pronounce them Michael, and they do pronounce the two names a little differently, but in my opinion, it pretty much sounds the same. That's just the problem with being a foreigner and not having that tuned in ear that a native Dane would have. And again, Mikkel means gift of God. So it seems like if your name starts with M, you have a pretty good chance of being God's gift in some way. Unless your name is Morton. Morton is another name, and Morton means of Mars. So you always hear that women are from Venus and men are from Mars. Well, I guess if you felt that was true, your name would be Morton. When I first started meeting people, mostly they were my husband's friends or just, you know, meeting people after moving here, I met a lot of Mortons. There's another one I didn't mention in there, and that is Martin. Martin is common, I think, in a lot of places, and either your name was Morton or Martin. I swear to God, when I first moved here, and I thought, it was kind of like in the girl video, had that confusion between those couple of names. You'll have to check out the video to see what I mean. But it was kind of confusing for a while, thinking, did people only have these two names? One is Niels. We have the word Neil, or the name Neil, for a boy in the US, but I've never heard it with the S on the end. And Niels means champion. And my boys have actually had a Niels in their daycare as one of the teachers, and he was fantastic. So I really like the description of his name. More names that I feel that are very unique to Denmark. Ones that I have never heard anywhere else. I've never even heard them mentioned. There's the name Ola, which I have heard again from people who mostly have been my age. And this one means forefathers. And then there is the name Per. And that is not to be confused with the spelling of the English word pear. But there are so many people that I have met here with that name. I think on my street alone, there are 3 people named Per. And I don't have that many people living on my street. It's like 20 houses or something like that. But this name, I know with the people who have that name, they are all older than I am. So I would say that they're people who are probably anywhere from 50 to 80 years old. I don't think I know any younger people with that name. So if you are younger than 50 and your name is Per, give me a shout out. Let me know how old you are. Then there is the name Torben, and I have known quite a few Torbens. Again, I would say that these are people my age and older who have this name. I don't think I know of anyone who is younger school age wise with this name. Obviously there are people out there that could prove me wrong. Let me know about it in the comments. But Clavin is another name that I have never heard before. And this one means ornamental bear, as in bear the animal, which is kind of an interesting idea. Then this is another name that I had a hard time with when I first moved here because I wasn't quite sure how to pronounce it. I wasn't sure if I was saying things correctly. I hadn't heard of it before. But I soon found out that there is this figure for children's stories that is very well known, and he also has the same name, and that is Sigurd. And Sigurd means victorious guardian, which, wow, that's an interesting name. But I know of this man who is older, he's probably in his 60s maybe, who has this name, and then I have actually met some people who are younger with this name as well. Then there is the name Steen, which actually means stone, and that's a very interesting thing. As an American, I don't know anybody with the name Stone or Rock, or maybe the name Rocky. Here's another one that I have heard of before, and this is Cerne. It's popular with people, I would say, who are kind of in the middle years, but I wouldn't say that I know a lot of younger children with this name. And this name means severe. Then we have the name Torben, which Torben means Thor, or if you pronounce it the Danish way, Thor, bear. So the bear belonging to Thor. But in Denmark, it's pronounced Thor. But Torben is a name that I have heard of with a lot of people my age. People younger than me, people my age, and people older. I wouldn't say that I know a lot of really young people with that name though. I've also known people in other countries with this name, so maybe just different versions of it. Then there's one that I have not heard anywhere else, and that is the name Trolls. And it sounds like troll, you know, those funky monster-like creatures that live under bridges, something from Norway or something. But Trolls is a name that is popular in Denmark. I again would say with maybe the middle years, people who are older. And this one means Thor's hostage. I'm speaking in English, I'm just going to pronounce Thor the English way. I would be really interested if somebody came across that and said, Thor's hostage. Okay, forget it, you know? But I think it's a nice name. I've known some very nice people with that name. Then there's the name Ulrich. I have known people with this last name in the US, but I've never known anybody with it as their first name. So that's interesting. And this one means ruler of all. So that's quite a powerful name. And it's so great to see how the boys' names are so different with their meaning, except for some of those in the M's that seem to repeat each other. But they're very diverse, and I really like that about the names. And then these names, I feel, the boys' names are so unique. One that I have heard many times, and that is Victor, means conqueror. So that, again, another powerful meaning behind a name. The last two names are Villis, which again is one that I've never heard anywhere else, but it sounds a lot like Willis, which is one that I have heard in the US. But Villis means ready for battle. And then there's the name Vilhelm, which to me sounds a lot like William, and that one means desire. So I think that's also quite interesting. So what about you? So far I've given you 50 traditional Danish names for boys. Which one has been your favorite? Do you know people with these names? Are there names on this list for traditional Danish names that I didn't mention that you'd like to add? Go ahead and put those in the comments below. Let me know about them. Now, the list that perhaps you've been waiting for are the popular Danish boy names that I feel that are going to be everywhere in Denmark in 2020. And these are in no particular order. The first one is Oliver. I know quite a few Olivers already, and Oliver you hear quite a lot of. It's a very popular name. And then you have the name Lucas, or Lucas, which I know quite a few Lucases in the US. It's been a pretty common name, I would say, for quite a long time. But Lucas is very popular, I think, in Denmark right now, and it has been pretty popular for quite a while. Then you hear the name Elliot, I know some people who actually named their son Elliot last year, and it's actually been a name that's been pretty popular here in Denmark for like the last 3 years or so, which is kind of surprising to me because it is a name that I remember from the early 80s back in the US. And these 3 names so far are ones that you would hear in the US. And that's what I'm thinking that is more common right now for 2020 for Danish boy names, is that they're not Danish. They're more of a universal type of name, a name that you will hear in a lot of other countries. There's also the name Christian, which Christian is actually a name that we have in the US, which we have in a lot of different countries. I feel that it's a name that's kind of been around for a really long time. And in Denmark, it's actually quite popular right now. Then there's also the name Nikolai. Nikolai, I would say that it's been popular for quite a few years. I know some teenagers with that name. I know some young children with that name. And I think it's also something that I hear quite often is the name Nikolai. Then I feel that there's another name that I should have added onto my traditional list, but it's one that is very popular again, is the name Rasmus. I know quite a few people with that name, and that one I feel is also quite popular. Another one that is really popular for 2020 is Elias. Then there's also Daniel. And I also think for 2020, another popular name is going to be Noah. Noah is one that I feel is really popular right now. There are a lot of younger children, a lot of babies being born with this name. And I think that when you look at a lot of the names, not all of them from this list, but the majority of these names have actually been around for a long time in a lot of different cultures. And I would not say that they are specifically Danish. And I am wondering if Danes these days are actually stepping away from traditional Danish boy names and trying to pick things that are a little bit more international. What do you think? Are you having a boy this year? What name do you have picked out? Let me know about it in the comments. I really appreciate all of your comments from the girl video. If you've not yet checked out my video about Danish baby girl names, you need to check that out. But also more importantly, read the comments. It is so great to have such wonderful viewers who add so much more in the comments section. Thanks so much. That has been one of the best videos that I have had, and I'm so grateful to have your help in that. Don't forget to leave comments below. Let's keep it going. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that red subscribe button and come back for another video. Thanks so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you in another video. As always, take care.